Hey guys, James here and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this channel is all about sharing my lifelong love of cars with you guys. Today we're sitting in a Tesla Model Y long-range dual motor. And last month I drove this car from San Diego to Salt Lake City and back, a total of 1,500 miles in very challenging conditions. The temperatures were over 100 degrees Fahrenheit more than half the time I was driving, and they reached 118 degrees. Through this trip, I learned a lot about what it's like to road trip a Tesla. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys the things that you need to know before you road trip a Tesla. The first thing I learned is that sometimes driving slower is actually faster. Through all the math that I did while driving and observing the energy consumption, I actually discovered that driving at about 70 to 72 miles per hour was actually faster than 80 miles an hour because of the reduced charging times that were required if I was driving slower. Also note that aerodynamic drag is more of a big deal for the Model Y and Model X versus the Model 3 and the Model S. So this effect will actually be greater in the SUVs than in the sedans. So my rule of thumb for you guys is this: if you're road tripping an electric vehicle and you're driving maybe 450, 500 miles or more in a day, drive a little slower and you will actually get to your destination faster. Number two is that the range predictions on the Tesla onboard computer can be quite inaccurate. I actually love this function on the onboard computer where it shows the battery percentage projection as you get closer to your destination, and then it shows what your battery percentage actually was versus the projection. That's unbelievably useful and confidence inspiring when you're on a long drive. But as with many things relating to Elon and Tesla, it's a little optimistic. I found that the only way to match the range projections was either to drive slower or to turn off the AC. Now I know that it sounds like it could be really annoying to deal with these kind of consistently optimistic projections, but it's actually not that bad. First of all, I know from experience now that for every 100 miles of driving, if you love running the AC or you love driving kind of fast, then reserve maybe an extra 5% battery. And the other thing is that the graph is updating in real time as you're driving, so you can see how you're stacking up against the projection. And if you're using too much battery, you can just throw in an extra supercharger stop. It's not a big deal. And this brings me to my next point, which is that the navigation system in the Tesla is designed to optimize the charging rate. And that means that it plans your trip so that you roll into the supercharger station with very little charge left. In general, if your battery state of charge is lower, it's gonna charge up faster. I mean, just think like SpongeBob when he's been left out in the sun too long, right? He needs water. And sometimes it goes a little too far. So on my road trip, there was one point where the navigation said, yeah, you'll arrive at the supercharger station with 3% battery left. And I was like, no. I'm in the desert in southern Nevada right now. I'm not gonna roll the dice with 3% left on the battery. Luckily, it was super easy to just add a stop, throw in another supercharger stop to get the battery to a point where I was more comfortable. The moral of the story is, even though the Tesla is pretty smart, you gotta use your common sense sometimes. And speaking of supercharger stops, the supercharger network is truly amazing. On my trip, I never had to wait for a supercharger stall. Why? Because on the map, it tells you how many stalls are open at any given time at any station. It was such a seamless experience and so well done that I was just amazed that this did not exist 10 years ago, and now it functions this well. And in general, the quality of the supercharging locations is pretty good. Usually the supercharger station will be in the back of a parking lot of maybe a Target or like a gas station or a hotel, something like that. So you don't have to walk very far before you get to a restroom. And usually there would be opportunities to quickly buy food or drinks before you set off again. There was just one supercharger station that I encountered that was not so great, which was a station in Las Vegas where I had to walk 5 minutes to get to the nearest restroom, and there were no signs or anything. I just had to figure it out. And the parking lot charged me 15 bucks, even though it was supposed to be free parking. Anyway, such is life. Next, let's talk about climate control. Now, this was a big deal during my particular road trip simply because I was driving through such hot temperatures. Climate control has an enormous impact on your energy consumption and therefore range. And to make matters worse, especially in hot climates, this glass roof lets in a ton of heat. So you're gonna be blasting that AC even more than you would in a car that does not have this kind of Tesla panoramic glass roof. When I was just cruising along on the highway without the air conditioning running, the Model Y would average about 250 watt hours per mile, or said another way, 4 miles per kilowatt hour. By contrast, when it was very hot and I was blasting the AC, the car would actually consume energy at about 400 watt hours per mile, or 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. That is an insane difference. So if you're planning to drive long distances in adverse weather like that, you're gonna want to add in a lot of time to account for the additional charging that you're gonna need. Not only does air conditioning or non-heat pump heating take up a ton of energy, when you're in very high or very low temperatures, the battery chemistry just doesn't work that well. These EV batteries tend to work best at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21, 22 degrees Celsius. So the more extreme the temperatures are, the less good EVs are for road tripping. So definitely make note of that if you're planning to drive through the desert or into the mountains where it's very cold. And the final thing that you should know before you take your Tesla on a road trip is the fact that Autopilot and full self-driving are amazing at reducing the amount of fatigue that you experience on long drives. Intellectually, I knew that Autopilot and auto steer would be great for long distance driving. But on this trip, I actually felt the difference, right? So after 12 or 15 hours of being on the road, when I got out of my car at night, I felt, wow, I actually feel much more fresh. And if you have a Tesla with enhanced autopilot or full self-driving capability, it gets even better because now you don't have to disengage auto steer and then re-engage it whenever you change lanes. Of course, this also applies to any other vehicles that have similar, semi-autonomous technologies. They're just wonderful technologies for road trips. All in all, what I've learned from road tripping this Model Y is that Teslas are very road trip worthy vehicles. That does not mean, however, that they're perfect. And if you're about to road trip a Tesla, you should know that A, you need to budget a lot more time for charging, and B, budget even more time for charging if you are driving under adverse conditions like really hot or really cold weather. But that's all I had for you guys today. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video or you found it helpful, if you could hit that like button, that really helps out this little growing channel that I've got going on here. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that I've got coming out. Again, my name is James. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.
Go down into the town here and then go back up and over the mountains a different route.